Hi parents, Kirk Jones, high school pastor, bringing you the weekend recap for Sunday, October the 14th. We're still in the Parables series. We talked about the two builders, went through that and looked at how we each have been given this life and we can build on it and we can do all different kinds of things with it. And Jesus warns us you need to start with your foundation on Christ, because then when life hits, when the weather comes, interestingly, it talks about how the streams arise and life will flood you sometimes. You know, the world will flood you with the peer pressure and temptations and things like that. But also from apparently heaven comes the wind and the rain, and God, he'll never tempt us, but he will allow us to go through trials, and he will bring people and situations into our lives that will challenge us and hopefully strengthen us if we have the right foundation. So we looked at who's on solid ground, those that are practicing God's word. We talked about what does it mean to practice God's word, and we talked about how at school, although your students might be familiar with the Bible, their friends might not have ever even picked it up. And so I challenge the high school students, hey, when you go to school, you might be the only Bible that someone's reading. You need to be practicing God's word because people are reading your life. We said, in regards to who's on solid ground, those that have Christ as a foundation, those that are living for eternity. Interestingly, if you were given the option to build a house either on a granite slab where there's not even necessarily dirt, where nothing can grow, or on the sand on a beach, we'd all choose the beach. And we talked about how the world, what it has to offer us is oftentimes so attractive. And it's not necessarily saying, now I'm just going to deny that. It's understanding, well, yes, the world, so much of what it has to offer, the fame and the popularity and the success of all that, it looks attractive. We need to understand that it's hollow, and that, it's not going to provide for us. There are no guarantees in life. Our salvation is the only guarantee. And that's where we can all just look at life and understand, wow, this parable teaches so much truth. If I build on money, success, popularity, anything like that, none of them are guarantees. In 2005, and I use this as an example, we saw that people that had, we all felt the effects of, the economy. But those that were devastated, those whose lives fell apart, were the ones that were worshiping money, not Christ. And then we talked a little bit about who's not on solid ground. We looked at the sheep and the goats and the wide and narrow gate. That's Matthew 25 and Matthew 7. In fact, I didn't mention this, but the parables in Matthew 7, I think it's verse 24 we looked at. And so a couple of things that I wrapped up with. The wise man, he intentionally looks for foundation. The foolish man, it's not necessarily that he goes out and intentionally builds on a bad foundation. It's that he doesn't think at all. He doesn't think at all. He just goes out and he lives his life. And a lot of us come into the world with that same mentality, like, let's just start building. Let's not even worry about a foundation. Interestingly, it talks about how the man who heard the word and puts it into practice is wise. The man who heard the word and did nothing with it is foolish. There's no mention in the parable at all about the man who never even heard the word. Thought that was kind of interesting. And not to scare them, I close by saying it's much better for us to test our foundation now than on Judgment Day. And I don't know where all of the students are and what their foundations look like, but definitely a gut check. What are you building on? What are you currently building on? You can chase after your dreams and your hopes and your education and athletics and things like that. And that's good, that's not bad, but what is your foundation? If your foundation is those things and Christ is a support beam, then your world comes down with a, as the Bible puts it, great crash. If your foundation is Christ, then obviously we can chase after all different kinds of things. I had so many different majors in college that fell apart, and when they did, my self-worth, it wasn't rocked, it wasn't devastated. I still had Christ as a foundation. Let me say this to you, parents. My desire is for the students to understand that it's not all about GPA, it's not all about MVP, it's all about GOD. Those are the three most important letters. And education is huge, super important. I went to college, I got a degree. So glad I did. Athletics, great, I love it. But those things are going to fade. At the end of our lives, God is going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. He's not going to say, well done, good and intelligent or athletic or popular or successful servant. It's whether or not we were faithful. And I'm only a piece of that puzzle. I think you as parents have a much greater opportunity to show that to your students, to show to them, okay, I'm all about sports, I'm all about education, I'm all about social life, but this is what's at the center. And I've seen sometimes in the past, students all of a sudden stop coming to church, they stop coming to youth group because of sports, because of schooling. Totally appropriate if it's, a game we have here or a test that's coming up. But if that's the norm, I think definitely we're communicating something to our students that we might not necessarily want to be communicating. Because that, my hope would be our goal, that they're seeing that above all else, no matter how crazy life gets, no matter what's going on, Christ is at the center. That's our foundation. We're going to be continuing the parables series for I don't know how many more weeks, until I get bored of teaching parables maybe. But I will see you next weekend.